Oh man, what is up, guys? Welcome back to Whisper Tactical. My name's John, and this is part 2 of my 4,000 round review. There is no shooting in this, but there is a lot of cleaning, taking it apart, field stripping it, cleaning the gas setting, gas system, all of that, putting it back together, tightening up my buttstock, just pretty much showing everybody how I clean, how I lube, how I maintain, how I preserve it, what I do before I put it in the safe, and to make sure that it doesn't rust. Because the first thing I'm going to tell you, if you do not put a CLP or some kind of oil, some kind of preservative on this gun, it's going to rust. That's a guaranteed. Alright guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you everything that I get and I lay out on the table before I even start to clean my gun. I don't want to get up and be bouncing around, moving around, doing all kinds of looking for everything and not knowing where anything's at. When I sit down to clean a gun, I want to clean the gun. I want everything I need there. I want to get it done and I want to put it away. It's not, I don't rush, but I don't want to get up and bounce around and do this and that and forget what I'm doing or not clean apart or miss something. So the first thing I do, I make sure I take the magazine out of my gun and I make sure the gun is unloaded. The gun is unloaded. If my stock is loose, then I get a set of Allen wrenches. If it's not loose, I don't need the Allen wrenches. Then I get myself a knife because, you know, you never know when you're going to need a knife. There is, at some point during something every guy does, we're going to need a knife. So get yourself a cheap knife, one you don't care to break the tip off of or something like that. Unscrew a screw with if you can't find a screwdriver, something like that. Then for this gun, I get a little mini flathead screwdriver, like super duper mini. Then I get myself a flashlight, one that has a low setting. This is my Olight i5T EOS. This one is my favorite one. It's got 2 settings. Tap it once, it's low, shut it off, turn it back on, it's bright. I love this flashlight, guys. This gets more use in my household than anything else, like hands down. Alright, so next, 2 microfiber towels, different colors. Doesn't matter, one could be green, one could be red, purple, blue, I don't care. I use yellow because yellow is what I actually wipe all the carbon, the just gunpowder, everything, all the nasty in this gun. I like to use the yellow to get that because it's like I can see my work as I go. Makes me feel like I'm, you know, getting stuff done. Then the orange one is for oil and preservatives, so pretty much COP and ballistol. So what I do with the orange one, actually, you know what, I'll do that in a second. Let me go through everything that I've got. Next, gun tips. I bought these at Walmart. They were like $10 for 24. It's a waste of money. Just go get Q-tips, guys. Just go get a thing of Q-tips and they work just fine to get in little tiny nooks and crannies. You don't want to clean with a Q-tip a lot because frays of the cotton falls off and it's just a mess. But I always need some gun tips or some Q-tips. A couple of cheap toothbrushes. Go to the dollar store, Dollar Tree, and get like a 6 or 7, 8 pack of firm bristled cheap toothbrushes. It's like $1, $2 for 8 or 10 of them or something like that. This is how I clean my rails. And then you are going to need a bore snake, or well, I use a bore snake. It doesn't mean you have to have one. You may have a rod and a patch, I don't know. But I use a 12 gauge bore snake. And then as for my cleaning agents, guys, I use COP and ballistol. I don't use Hoppies, I don't use Lucas, I do use Breakthrough sometimes. I don't fall into the Shooter Lube hype. Shooter Lube, guys, like CLP and ballistol will clean your gun just as good as Shooter Lube will. Shooter Lube, those guys made a product pretty much the same that everyone else had, and they just marketed it very well. And they got some big time YouTubers on board like Tactical Toolbox, and you know, people fell into it and they pay a lot of money for stuff that they really don't need to pay a lot of money for, because this stuff goes a long way and it works really good, and it's just what I I swear by this stuff. So when it comes to CLP, don't buy the aerosol can that's compressed with the compressed air in it. Buy the one that has the little flip top. They're both 4 ounces. This one's 10, this one's 7. And you get all of this, and you will not get all this. Your air will be gone before you get all of your CLP out, and unless you bust the can open and make an even bigger mess just to get a little bit of liquid, it's not really worth it. Next, for cleaning and preserving, I use Ballistol. Cannot go wrong with this stuff. And then for now, extreme weapons grease. This is my thick grease. This is some thick stuff right here. Now I also use like an extreme weapons grease that's a liquid. It's just as good, but I like to use them both. This is Wilson's Combat Ultima Lube 2. I have a brand new container of it. I keep 3 or 4 bottles of this stuff on me at all times in and around my gun stuff. And then as for just plain gun lube, oil, whatever you want to call it, I use gun butter. Now this stuff is expensive. It's $25 an ounce, but I've got half a bottle left, and I've been using this for over a year. Over a year, guys. So everything that's on this table, cleaning wise, all that stuff, I have linked in the description below. You can link over to Amazon and pick this stuff up. And last but not least, guys, you need a Capri Sun. So, all right, guys, so let's get into it. First of all, the first thing I do is I take my orange microfiber towel. I fold it once, and I fold it twice. I fold it 3 times, and then I fold it 4 times. And I take my CLP and I squirt all over one side of this. And I mean, I saturate this side. Now, no, I'm not wasting this because this is saturated, yes, and I am using quite a bit. But my whole rag, after I'm done with this, the way I do it, my whole rag is gonna feel like a damp washcloth. And I can put it in a Ziploc bag, and I can use it to clean 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guns, however many I sit down to clean in that day. Or I can even keep it for a couple of days and it'll stay good and damp in a Ziploc bag. So I get that side good and saturated, pop the Ballistol off, and I spray a good bit of Ballistol all over it. Let it soak that stuff in there really good. Yeah, good stuff right here. Then I take this rag and I unfold it in half, and then fold the dry spot over top of the wet spot, and then I squeeze it. And I squeeze it really tight. Now, I don't spray enough on there to where it wrings out, but I do spray enough on there to where my entire microfiber cloth feels like a damp washcloth, like I've used a washcloth, wrung it out in the shower, and then hung it up to dry. It's damp like that. Not dripping wet, not wasteful, but enough to coat my hands and everything it touches. Then take that, I just set it out of the way for now. So first thing I do is on the back of this gun, you have a little button that you push in to raise your dust cover. Okay? Now, inside of your dust cover, right here, this is your guide rod spring and guide rod. So, you're gonna pull it backwards towards the muzzle of the barrel. Hold it. Do not let this spring tension fly or it's gonna shoot out like that. Pull it out, set it out here, out of the way. Okay? Then, open up your towel here a little bit, the one you're cleaning with. Open up your towel here a little bit. Keep your dust cover open. Pull back on your charging handle, and then you get your bolt carrier group, and your piston. You get it all the way to the rear of the receiver, and pull it straight up and out at a diagonal angle. Instead of going straight back or straight up, go straight, boom, like that. Then set your gun down. The dust cover is aggravating. This is why I recommend the newer model JTS MK12T1, because the dust cover is not hinged. You can remove it like you can on AK-47s. So yeah, so that's that. Now, you've got your, man, this thing is dirty. You've got your piston, your bolt carrier, and your bolt. So this stuff will come out. Looks like a little tunnel going in the side there. You see that? The little cutout? Now there's a spot on your actual bolt itself, because this thing will, your bolt will slide back and forth, okay? It's kind of locked in there. So you gotta kind of twist it a little bit, and it's gonna come right up out of that little tunnel. That's what it looks like. Then you pull it apart. Simple as that. Now, whenever you're shooting your gun, if you have malfunctions like click no bangs, like you pull the trigger, the gun's not going off, you're pulling the trigger, you hear the snap, but there is no indentation in the primer of the shell, this is where you start. This is what holds your firing pin. Your hammer hits here, and it protrudes that firing pin out, bap, really fast. And it hits your primer, ignites your shell. If you ever have a problem like that, this is where you come to first. Where you don't replace all kinds of stuff that is just not needed. Now this one's super duper dirty, so I'm gonna go ahead and get a third towel to keep my hands good and wiped off and not slick, so I can hold this stuff. I am going to leave, you know what, I may start using 3 towels. Now that I'm using a table, a sheet and a new table and stuff, probably gonna start using 3 towels instead of 2. So take your CLP and just spray it on your piston. Daggone it. Spray it on your piston. Now this is what I need a knife for, because I can't get my finger down in there to raise this up. Awesome. Okay, so squirt it, CLP all over your bolt carrier group, your piston, your bolt, good, and work it in. Get it all good and on there. Good CLP, all this just good, nasty, wet slickeriness. Boom, do the same thing for your piston, do the same thing for your bolt carrier here. All of it nice and neat. A little bit more. Right? Okay, now just sit it right here, right where you had it. Just let that CLP work its way through your crud, griminess, all that nastiness, and instead of having to fight with it to come off after a couple of minutes, it'll just wipe right off. See, no need for hoppies, all that cleaning stuff that'll like make you pass out when after you're done cleaning the gun for 15 minutes, you've smelled it for so long you're about to die. Yeah, so you don't need none of that. Then I always just kind of wipe down the outside of the gun, see what I got going on. All right, now next thing we're going to do is we are going to take some CLP, put a drop or 2 on each rail, take the toothbrush, work that stuff in real good. Now, once you take your bolt carrier and bolt carrier group out, you're going to see your 2 rails. They're sitting right on the inside of the receiver, right towards the top. I'm going to point them out just in case you don't see you don't know what the rail is. That's your rail, and that's your rail. They go from here and they slide all the way to the back of the receiver, and they stop about an inch before they get to the back of the receiver here. But yeah, so those are your rails right there. Man, this thing is dirty. A couple drops of CLP on my toothbrush there, and I'm going to take my ballistol and just give it one solid spray. Yes. Now, we're just going to let that soak. It does the same thing that CLP does, just let it soak in there. So, now that my internals, my bolt carrier rope, my piston, all that, now that that's soaking, I'm going to show you this. So, all right guys, that little lever right there, this one. Now you're just gonna kind of pop it up, right? There's a little metal bar that lever is attached to. Imagine just a metal circle cut in half. So here you have half side is rounded, the other half is flat. All right, so when you raise this up, you're turning that little bar around till the flat side is straight up and down, facing the end of the barrel. You're going to get it straight up and down, and that's going to allow you to pull your upper handguard off, your gas tube. And if you want to take this thing apart, all you have to do, okay, this right here, don't lose this. It goes right here on your gas tube here. All you gotta do, grab the end here, twist this thing to the opposite side, and it pops right up, literally. You can see what I'm talking about. There's a little collar. There's a little collar that wraps all the way around this, and you know that you can look at this and tell that collar's made for it. So this thing slips right back in there, and then twist it back around, and it's back on there. But we'll take it all the way off. Okay. So you pop your little ring off, take that off, then grab right here, just twist it. Half a turn, not a full turn. If you twist it a full turn, you're just going to twist it right back. It's going to stop actually, but still, half a turn. Oh, daggone. Pops right out. Now this is what I'm talking about. This is the collar that I'm talking about. And it looks like it's made just for that, because it is. It literally pops right back up in there in place, and then half a turn. Now, everything is in place. Half a turn, pull it apart, and you have a little skeletonized gas tube. Set that there, set your cover here. This is gonna get dirty. This is gonna get dirty right here. But what I found that I can do, instead of trying to get like a toothbrush in there and ramming it around, I just get a little bit smaller of a bore snake, and I just run a bore snake through this too. But we're gonna soak it, ballistol. I would be soaking it in CLP. But I need to get a squirt bottle, like a spray bottle, because this just drips out of this little nozzle. But if I get like a kind of like a Lysol bottle, like one of the bottles you can, like a spray bottle you can buy at Walmart for $1 in the cleaning section, I put my CLP in one of those and just spray CLP into it. It works the best. Anyway, all right. So now, on your gas selector up front, you will see it. You will not miss it. If you're looking at it dead on, just kind of look over to the side of it where you'd put your fingers to twist it, like on the rigid spot, and you're going to have some holes in there, right? Well, one of those holes are going to be filled with a little screw. Get you a little flathead screwdriver. You can't miss it. I don't need to show it to you. I'll show you the screw, and I'll show you when I put it back together. But you're going to pop that little screw out, right? You're going to set it down, and then your gas selector is just going to pop right off. Now, best piece of advice I can give you, have your gas set on 3 or 0 or something. Whatever number you can remember is the number you need your gas set on, because if you put your gas puck and everything down in here, your adjuster, if you put everything back in there on setting 1, put the setting 1's hole down to the barrel here, and you put your gas adjuster back on, but you make it to where it looks like it's set on gas setting 3, then every time you go to 3, it's really going to be on 1, and it's going to mess with you. So make sure when you put that back together, you're consistent, and you make sure that you put your number on your gas dial setting to what hole you have corresponding with the profiled the profiled hole in your barrel for your gases to go up through. I don't know if you understand that. I understand that the way I explained it. Sorry if it's confusing, but I'll explain it better as I go. All right, so now, if you have done any hardcore shooting with this at all, it is going to really be in there, but we're not going to get to that yet. So next is another little locking collar type deal. In your lower handguard here, right there where the light's shining brightest, I know it's hard for you to see, little locking collar right there. It's going to be on the side of the gun that your safety is on. So you're gonna pop that little locking collar up, okay? You're gonna feel it release. You're gonna spin it all the way around. You're gonna feel it release. You're gonna feel your lower handguard pull back. Just wiggle it back and forth and work it forwards towards the end of the barrel. It's gonna drop free. Right? Now your locking collar is gonna have to, instead of staying back here by your gas adjuster and your gas puck, you're going to have to spin that thing around. The reason you have to do that is because this is your locking collar. Your gas adjuster won't come out because it hits that. So whenever you take your handguard off, you got to bring this forward, bring your locking collar forward. Then once your handguard's gone, you just kind of spin it around, twist it, get it up out of the way. Then you can take something and kind of push this out. Now, if you're planning on cleaning this and you have done extensive shooting, odds are you're going to have to beat this daggone thing out with a brass hammer. I guess I probably should have told you to have that from the beginning, huh? Wheeler Engineering Delta Series is an AR roll pin toolkit. And it comes with a hammer with a brass and a plastic side. You are going to need the brass side. So now you've got your hammer. Tap your hammer on where so there's the spot that sticks through where your gas adjuster hooks onto. Just easily tap it. So I have to get a roll pin punch to put on the end of it and smack mine with a brass hammer to get it to come out, because mine's super seized in there. Alright, so now that's out. There's another piece inside of that sleeve. Looks like a little sleeve in there. It's stuck in there, and I need that out, and there's no way to get that out without pulling it out. Anyway, so this is what slides into that. So you see that itty bitty tiny hole? That is your number 1 gas setting. The medium hole is your number 2 gas setting, and the big hole is your number 3, and then that is your 0. There is no hole. So that's pretty much how that works. The top of your barrel, where this sits, has a hole in it. When you pull that trigger and the round goes off, fire, combustion, all kinds of stuff happens, a bunch of pressures, and it pushes that wadding down the barrel. Shoo, right? So nothing really happens like cycling the action-wise until the wad passes this gas port. Now, from here, from the gas port to the end of the barrel, that's what they call dwell time. So that's how much time your gases have to go up into your gun, into your gas tube, through your into your gas setting here, into your gas adjuster, through your gas tube, and push your piston, bulk carrier group all the way back far enough to eject the fired shell and reload the next shell back in. Okay, so for the guy who asked me a question, he said, man, I made mine a short barrel shotgun. I cut 5 inches off of it. So when you cut 5 inches off this barrel, now you only have half as much dwell time. So your gun finishes cycling at this point instead of this point because your pressures get released from the barrel 5 inches sooner than original. That's why you have to run higher powered shells to get enough pressure and enough gases up in there to actually reliably cycle your gun. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to find a good, capable, like gunsmith who knows what he's doing, and what he's going to have to do is he's going to have to reprofile your barrel. So he's going to take this, your gas tube, your gas port, everything here, and he's going to move it back closer to the receiver. And they're going to drill a new hole, a new gas port. They're going to redo everything. Your whole gas system is going to be moved closer to your receiver. That way you can gain that 5 inches of dwell time back. I hope that makes sense. And that's going to cost you like $600, but you lost your threads. So if you want your choke tube threads, then you're going to have to pay like an extra $100, $120. So all in all, to turn this into a short-barreled shotgun, to get your threads back, it's going to cost you $700. Is that worth it? If that's what you want, that's worth it. I've never seen a reliable JTS AK-12 SBS, but if you have one and it's done right, then it's a unicorn, that's for sure. And I would like to have one, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, man, that's what you need to do. You need to have a certified gunsmith just reprofile your barrel and move all of your gas, everything back a few more inches closer to your receiver. That way you'll gain a little extra dwell time. Because as of now, you're not getting enough dwell time. There's not enough hang time in there for enough gases and pressure to go up and cycle your gun before they're released out the end of the barrel. So I hope that helps you, and I hope you're able to get that taken care of, because it would suck to have to only run buckshot, high brass, or slugs through it. Alright guys, so at this point I am going to take Ballistol and I'm going to spray it on my gas thing here and put some COP on it. Rub it in real nice. You don't clean me enough. That's what it's saying. Look at my hands, I got dirty. Alright guys, enough joking around. Okay, that's that. So, reach up in there with your little toothbrush, get you some COP on this. Now, the COP that you're about to put in here, you have to clean this out. You have to take a dry toothbrush, some kind of towel, something, and you got to clean this out. You don't want to get this all dirty and gooky, because this is your gas system. If you get your gas system gooky and dirty and it's clogged up and doesn't want to run, then your gun is not going to run. So, get up in there with some COP, take your finger, look at that. Just one push up and in there, rub it around real good. Barrel down, take this, take the toothbrush, stuff it down in there, and just work the toothbrush all inside of that, right? Alright guys, that should be pretty much good enough, because there is no COP and stuff on that. So, make sure that's good and slick and clean. Yeah, we're good. No, it's not so saturated that it's going to cause me any problems. Alright, so that's that. Also, I'm going to talk about tolerances. Now, I know a lot of you all may not understand what tolerances are and what they mean when it comes to guns and machining, and a lot of you do know what tolerances are, but when you machine these parts, they're machined to tolerances. So, I mean, the best way I can explain it, and I don't know how JTS is, I don't know what their tolerances are, but I was reading in a gun, so everything here has sat soaked long enough. It's time to take your rag and just start wiping stuff down. So, tolerances. I was reading in a magazine one time, one of the Gucci Glock companies that makes aftermarket Glocks, and they make their own, pretty much they make their own version of a Gen 3 Glock. They said that their tolerances, they get down to 3/1000ths of an inch tolerance. So it's not necessarily 3/1000ths of an inch, it's 3/1000ths of an inch plus or minus. So that's how tolerances work. So we'll just say this example, these two rails, the rails that are on the inside of your receiver here, we'll just say that those rails have to be cut to 250/1000ths of an inch with a tolerance of plus or minus 3/1000ths of an inch. So take an inch, cut it into 1,000 pieces. When I was in machine shop and we had that class in college, when we had to do our little arts and crafts, we had to cut them to 10,000ths of an inch plus or minus. So guys, doesn't sound like a lot, but 10,000ths of an inch to a machinist is a football field, like literally as wide as this table. I know it's not, but the way a machinist sees it, 10,000ths of an inch is just like, really? Okay, just swap this out real quick and get it done. Okay, so we'll say that the JTS has to cut their stuff to plus or minus 3/1000ths of an inch. That's their tolerance. And those rails had to be cut for, let's say each rail has to be 1/4 of an inch, which is 250,000ths of an inch, okay? That means he cuts one rail, but he messed up and when he was putting the numbers into his little machine or doing whatever he was doing, he messed up and forgot to add in something, or he typed in something wrong. So when he's cutting it, he cuts it down to 253/1000ths of an inch. Okay, so it's 3/1000ths of an inch over in tolerances, so it's good, right? But not only that, but it's metal on metal, because he's using probably a high-speed steel or some kind of high-speed steel, some end mill or something. He's doing something to cut it down, to shave it down, and that metal got hot. So it's going to cool down 40 degrees until it hits room temperature. Rule of thumb, every 20 to 30 degrees, a piece of metal cools, it's going to shrink 1/1000ths of an inch, give or take. So he cut it to 253/1000ths of an inch, and he's like, good, I'm within tolerance. And then it shrinks 2 more thousandths of an inch as it cools. So his first rail is cut to 251/1000ths. Well, then his next rail, he stops at 250/1000ths of an inch, and it cools 60 to 75 degrees, and it shrinks down to 246/1000ths of an inch. Well, that's garbage. You got to throw it away and start it over because you've taken too much metal off and it's not in tolerance. Well, he redoes it, and he decides he's not making that mistake again. So he knows it's going to cool. He knows that he can get it to 253 and be done. So he cuts it to 256. It cools and shrinks 3/1000ths of an inch. So he's got it at 253/1000ths of an inch. The other one's 251/1000ths of an inch, when both of them really needed to be 250/1000ths of an inch, right? So now, instead of having a perfect gap in between them, and this one's 250 and this one's 250, he's got an extra 1/1000ths added on this side and an extra 3/1000ths added in on this side. Well, then, he starts cutting the tolerances on the bolt carrier group here, the part that the rails sit in, okay? So these have to be cut to a certain tolerance. But instead of cutting them to that tolerance, he learned from his mistakes before, he's going to cut it short. So we'll say these have to be cut in, golly, that looks like a 1/16 of an inch. It doesn't look big at all. We'll just say that this one has to be cut in to a depth of, we'll just say 0.0, we'll just say 75 thousandths of an inch. So 0.075 is how deep he has to go. So his first pass, he's at 0.000 right now. He makes a pass. He takes off 10 thousandths of an inch. Boom. Now he's got to go 0.065 more. But he's like, man, I'm not making that same mistake again. So he cuts it short. He stops at 0.072 because he knows it'll shrink a little bit, right? So then it shrinks down, and I don't know, we'll say that he cut it 0.072. So instead of going an extra 3 thousandths of an inch deeper, he's within tolerance, so he lets it go. And that is 3 thousandths of an inch extra that it should have had cut out, but it's not. So he didn't go in quite as deep as it technically should have been, but still within tolerance. He does that on both sides. So now you've got 3 thousandths of an inch on this side that needed to be cut out, but he didn't have to because he was within tolerance. And this. So not only is that 3 thousandths extra of an inch on each side, but that's 6 thousandths of an inch extra on the two sides together. Okay? Not only that, but he was over 4 thousandths of an inch. That's 10 thousandths of an inch. That's going to mean there's a lot tighter tolerance than mine. Mine's got a really loose tolerance. Mine might just have been the perfect cut tolerance in the world. You never know. Every single one of these, even though it's the same gun, each one of them are cut to different tolerances. I don't care. If you go over it with a micrometer, you are not going to find a single one of these guns that has the same cut, the same tolerances as each other gun. They're all cut at different tolerances. Somewhere on this gun, mine's different than yours, even though it's the same gun. So that's how tolerances work. You know, people, sometimes machinists, they can get away with leaving a little extra metal on there. I mean, why would you take the time to make an extra pass? You know, and, you know, that would just one more pass. That's just one more pass you're going to have later on down the road. That's one less pass that tool is going to have to go through. So you're saving your tool, you're saving your time. When you save time in a machine shop, you save money. Okay? That's how that works. So, you know, instead of cutting it down to exact tolerances, he left it plus 3 thousandths of an inch on each side, and then he left the rest of it plus. So all the tolerances are tighter in that gun. If you have looser tolerances, the gun's going to run better. AKs technically run better because they have loose tolerances. ARs or tighter tolerance. Everybody's like, my tolerances are so tight, but the tighter the tolerance, the more room for failure. That makes sense. So the looser the tolerance, the more wobbly it's going to be, the easier it's going to rack. You know what I mean? It's not going to be as just like, it's not going to have as much friction, metal rubbing metal everywhere. My cutouts here, where my rails sit, it's loose. I can wobble it a little bit. I've seen them before where you can't wobble them at all. Now that one's going to require so much more of a break-in than mine did, and that's just because, you know, the machinist may have had diarrhea and ran to the bathroom real quick and then forgot what he was doing and didn't cut the tolerances as loose, you know, cut them a little tighter to save time and save money and get his quota for the day. You know, that's why some require break-ins, some don't. That's why some run a lot of stuff, and that's why others don't. Mine runs really light loads because my tolerances are looser than yours. Yours might not run the lighter loads because you've got a little bit more metal on metal and it's a little bit more beefy than mine. hope that makes sense. But that's enough talking about that, because that's just a whole nother thing. I'll get into a big long tangent and talk about a lot of machining stuff. Everywhere I've shot my whole life. Now I'm doing YouTube for miraculous teaching everywhere. Everywhere shooting everywhere. Now I'm doing YouTube channel. Teaching everywhere. Oh, shooting everywhere. We're going to shop for 30 years. Now I'm doing YouTube channel. Teaching everywhere. Maybe I'm going to make this video. Get the video downstairs. It's ridiculous. Women. Slow back. Can't get it down. Let me get it down. Alright guys. So I've got this about as clean as I'm going to be able to get it. I don't know what I'm going to do about getting that puck out of there, because it's not coming out at all. Alright, that worked. Okay. That's clean. My bolt's clean. My bolt carrier group and piston's clean. My gas tube's clean. That's not really that dirty, so I'm not going to run a bore snake through it. Now, it is time to... Now, I am going to take my CLP saturated rag here, and I'm going to rub down the barrel up here. Now that I've got my collar undone and stuff, I really want to get that... the excess carbon and gases from around this, now that I can actually get in there to it. So wrap this around here, take the toothbrush, get in good and underneath of this. This is how you do this right here. Just lay your towel on it, and just see that crack right in there? Just lay the towel on it and just rub with the toothbrush. Tell you what, man, microfiber towel, CLP, and a toothbrush, and you could just about clean everything you need to clean on a gun. Alright, now that's good and wiped down. Okay, so now my gas setting was on 3 when I took this apart, so I'm going to find... Now you've got holes in the top of this. I'm going to show you this specifically. This is very important. Okay, you've got holes in the top and you've got holes in the bottom. Little hole in the top, big hole in the bottom. Middle hole, big hole. Big hole, big hole, no hole, big hole. The top holes are the holes that are your settings. These bottom holes are that's just like free flow, pretty much. It's just like excess gases to flow through without causing the gun to rack itself too hard and beat itself to death. It's just pressure releases, pretty much. So I know I'm going to set this on 3, so I'm going to find my biggest hole on the top, and I am going to put it at the 6 o'clock position, straight down onto the hole on top of my barrel, my gas port, right? So I've got the small hole on top, that's setting 1. That means the big hole's on the bottom, setting 3. And I'm going to hold it directly in place, and I'm going to slide it on up in there. All right, that's it. Don't touch that again. Okay, go ahead, set your gun down, take your gas dial, your setting, take your 3, make sure your 3 is at the 6 o'clock position closest to the barrel. Slide your gas setting on there. Take your screw. You want 3 closest to the barrel. And then you've got a hole right there in your gas setting, right there in the side of it. You see that? Right there. Take this little screw, drop it in that little hole. Then you come back over here, set down. And you're going to have to wiggle your gas setting just a little bit to get your threads concentric, so they'll thread down in till it's snug, not tight. Don't tighten it so tight that you have to like He-Man that thing off there. Just get it good and snug. Then before you go any further, depress your plunger, see if you can change your gas setting. Will it twist? And mine will. So I'm going to get this set back to 3, just because that's where I leave it. That's good. All right, now you're pretty much done with your gas setting, gas port. Now you have got to take your locking collar for your lower handguard, rock it back and forth, and get it as close to your gas port as you can. Now this is the most aggravating, tricky part to this whole process. Getting your lower handguard back on and getting it close enough to your receiver and mag well for your locking collar to lock in place. Now there is a divot. See that divot right there in the barrel? Right there? Your locking collar goes over that. And then you twist that little thing around, and a bar, it's like the flat, it's got like the half moon shape too. But the round part actually rolls around and goes down in that divot, and it holds everything in place. So that's why it's a locking collar. So now, this is aggravating. Make sure I wipe my barrel down with my preservative rag, because right here, the reason I do that with my preservative rag and don't worry about getting it dirty and getting it cruddy is because this is parts of the gun that you can't see unless you take it apart. And I clean it really good. I make sure I get it really good and oiled up in these spots that I can't see, because I don't want it to be rusting and I just don't know that it's rusting. So I get these good and preserved up. Then I get my locking collar as close to my gas port as I can. Then I take my lower handguard, which it's not that dirty really. Slide it back up in place, and I get it up onto the gun, snap it in place, and then there we go, as far back against the receiver as I can. Twist my locking collar up in place. Now man, I'm telling you, this takes some force. Then spin it around. Now if you go to spin this locking collar, your little latch, and it does not go, and you have to feels like you're going to take a hammer and beat it in place, then it's not ready. You've still got some ways to go with your handguard. It will lock itself back into place easy once you do all the hard work and get the handguard where it needs to be. So as you can see, mine's back in place. Simple as can be. Okay, now I have done cleaned my skeletonized gas tube. Take my upper handguard, your gas tube cover, whatever you want to call it, and I literally just hold it right here like this. Take the towel, set it on top of it, take a toothbrush and just get down in there real good, right? Get down in there real good. Then whoosh, pull it out. Right? Now, good and clean. I know you couldn't see that. I've got all of my studio lights on me so you can actually see me, and it still doesn't shine very good on the black gun. Anyways, guys, okay, remember your collar on the top of your gas tube, and it's fit for this. Put them back together. Oh, sorry, I did it. Shoot, did that backwards. Okay, did it the opposite way of the way it should have been. Pop it back together because it's made for each other. Half turned, right? Now, it's not falling off. That's good. Okay, now you remember your little ring. Pop that back on. So in case you weren't wondering, this is something that I've been asked too. Now you've got your gas tube off and you had to put your little ring back on. Now the ring will go on both ways. Do you see how it's just kind of like it'll go on this way and it will go on this way. That way is wrong, okay? You don't want it on like that. That's wrong. You want it on like that. Like that. Not like this, okay? No, that's bad. That right there, okay? See it spinning? See how it's flat now? See how that's flat and that's rounded? Now what you want when you're putting your gas tube back on is for that to be flush, straight up and down. Not like this, Not like this. Flush. Straight up and down. Okay? You make sure that's straight up and down. You're going to have to hold this little locking collar. You're going to have to hold it straight up and down. You're going to put this here on the gas port, and then bop, right back in place. Then put it down in there good enough. Snap her in place. Do you know what I'd like to know? I wonder if the AK-47 binary trigger would work in this gun. That would be a modify that I would do. I'm going to call Franklin Armory and I'm going to ask them, and then I will let you know the answer in the comments below whenever I actually talk to those guys. Okay, so now we've got the front end of the gun put back together. Now, there is literally right here, right there in that little hole, there's an Allen head screw. Right there. Right down in that little deep dark hole right there. That is what tightens your stock up. So let me find whichever Allen key that is, and it looks like this one. Oh, that was kind of loud. So let's see, was it? Oh, perfect. So then you just tighten that down real good. That was pretty loose. Now you don't want to over tighten this because you don't want to strip that out. You don't want to break it. Don't under tighten it. Don't over tighten it. Just tighten it good enough to where it'll go just a hair more and then quit. Now my stock is solid. Now, as for this part, this is the worst part, the most time consuming. So, first of all, I'm just going to take this here rag, lay the gun this way, and I'm just going to wipe out my dust cover really good. Now be careful. Be careful when you're doing this, because the corner of the dust cover, this is pretty much daggone just stamped sheet metal, guys. I'm telling you, like, it's a little bit beefier than sheet metal, but you run your hand across this at the right angle with enough force and enough speed, and you're going to cut plumb to the bone. I can promise you that. It's going to hurt you. So just rub your dust cover down really good. Get all the inside of it. Get it good and dry. Now it's good and cleaned. Perfect. Then I go upside down. Stick my hands like this down into the, I can't go very far, but because my hands get fat and they won't go down in there. But I take this rag and just stuff it down in the mag well upside down, and I just work this thing around. Everything I can touch, everything I can get clean, everything I can wipe down gets wiped down. Make sure that you grab the middle of the rag when you do this, so your hand is not bare in there, guys. I'm telling you, cut yourself, you will bleed. You will pour like you've been straight slit with a knife. I guess there's a compartment. I guess there's a compartment in the bottom of the grip. I didn't know that, but there is. So there's a little button and a little hinge door looking thing here that you can just push a little button, and I didn't know that was there. I've had this gun for this long, had no idea that was there. All right, so pretty much got everything in there about as good as I can get it. Now, I'm gonna get this right here, everything I can get with the rag. Then I'm going to take the rag, lay it in there, take my hands, kind of bunch it up, just bunch it up, and stuff it down in there and just work it. Ow. And just work it. Work it like it owes me money. All right, just stuff her down in there and just clean. Get as much as I can by hand. Clean the hammer, clean the trigger, see if I can get the springs. Just bunch this thing down in there and just Go back and forth real good. Then I lay it right across the top of it. Spread it out to where it's good and thin, not bunched up. Take my toothbrush. This, guys, this right here is where you really are going to get the cleaning done. So you're going to take your towel and you're just going to lay it over the top like this, okay? Take your toothbrush, back your receiver, bop. Just push it down in there and just work it. Now, you're not going to get everything, okay? I'm just going to be the one to tell you that. Never, ever, ever will you get everything in this gun unless you go outside with the water hose and soak it down and have a compressed air compressor with the air hose and you spray everything down and dry it up. That's going to be the only way you get this gun completely clean. But if you do that, mark my words, you will find rust in places you don't want rust. And if you're able to do that and then you don't care to get it good and dry, take ballistol and just spray a good coat of ballistol in there and then work everything around with a rag, then that would work. I mean, it would work. It would be about the fastest way to do it. But as for now, your trigger is going to go home really hard when you pull this trigger. So hold it good. Okay, there we go. Now, don't take your toothbrush and ram it down in behind your hammer here. I didn't mean your trigger, I meant your hammer. When you pull the trigger, your hammer's gonna go home hard. Now don't like do this. Don't like over your trigger and hammer springs. Don't do that. Take your fingers and just easily work around here. Get as much of it as you can get. Bunch a little bit up of it. And then that's about as good. It's about as good as I'm gonna be able to get. So, it's still dirty, like down in the bottom of the receiver, against the receiver sides. There's always going to be some sort of gunk, some sort of something down in there. So then, if you really want to be anal and you really want to get that clean, you're going to have to take your light. You're going to have to hold it down in there so you can see. You have to take your Q-tip, and you're really going to have to just get everything you can get. Everything you can get. Now this is how I get under my the Q-tip, the gun tip. As much as I don't like these because they're so expensive, they literally are almost 50 cents a piece. And it's just a little plastic stick with a foam piece on the end of it. It's stupid. But this is the only thing that I have ever been able to get underneath of my hammer spring with. So unfortunately, you're just going to have to bite the bullet and buy a bag of those if you want to get under your hammer spring. Get under there real good. Get in here and ow. Man, I tell you what, I hate this dust cover. I can't tell you how many times I've cut my face letting the gun slide and crack my eyeball or something with this thing. All right. Running along the edge of my rail. Running along my rail. Then, let's see what we can get here. I take the towel, or the microfiber cloth, or microfiber towel, whatever you want to call it, and I take the toothbrush and the microfiber, and I really get in there to my rails really good. Clean my rails really good, and make sure they don't have any gooky on them, any gooky carbon stuff. Get that really good. So, just an example. So you can see the line where I just use the Q-tip to run it right there, all down my rails. So that's that. Oh, guys, that's weird. I have I have a piece that's came out that doesn't need to be out, okay? I'm gonna have to work on this now. That's bothering me, and I can't get in there for this stupid dust cover. No, it's not good. If that pops out, that will be bad. I need you to go home, my friend. Oh man, that ain't no good. That whole piece is sticking out there, and it doesn't need to be. I can see it moving. I'll bet I could pull it out. Oh, okay. I'm not really sure. Aha, there we go. Whoo. All right, now if I'm gonna go put another 500 rounds through this, get up to 4,500, and I'm curious as to see if that starts walking out. If that starts walking out, I'm gonna call Keith down at TAC 47. I'm gonna send this to him. I can't have that happening. I'll bring it over and show you. I should have showed it to you before I fixed it, but that was something that just bothered me. So there's a rivet right there. The pin that's underneath it, this pin. And it goes through and is right there. That one. It popped out of the receiver and was going through. That would have been bad. Would have not been good. Okay guys, so now here comes the part that all of you all need to see. See the rails? That's a rail. The shiny. All that black's worn off of it. All right. So when I do my rails, when I grease my rails, let me show you what I do. The Wilson's Combat, okay? Now, this has got a fine point on it, okay? So there's not a lot of lube coming out of this thing. I run it a little line from one end to the other on both sides. Okay? Now, I also take this Wilson's Combat Grease, and I put one good dab of it on each side of on each part of the coil of my hammer spring. Then I just work the hammer back and forth a little bit. Be careful doing this because your finger is running right on the rail. Okay? Just I put a little bit of grease on my springs there and just work that because I want to get that metal saturated underneath of those springs so it doesn't rust. It's just as smooth as the day I bought it. Then, so right here, okay, there's a little claw looking thing right there and right there. Now, your hammer sits right in between there. So you got a little bit of metal versus metal. So while the hammer is in place in between those, I take a very tiny dab of this, and by dab I mean that. I know it looks big, but it's not. It's barely on my finger. It's not even the size of a water drop that comes out of your sink, just a drop of water. It's not even that big. It's like a quarter of that big. So right here and right here, just tiny, tiny bits, and then I release my hammer and I just work the lube into the sides of the metal right there of my hammer, right there and right there where the metal touches, and right there, because I've got metal wear right there. You can see the shiny spot. If metal rubs metal, I put a really thin layer of that grease on it, really thin. So then I go back here and there's nothing, pretty much. It's just dry. So I just take a little bit on my finger, And just rub all over the inside of the bottom of the receiver, on the sides. I don't want my metal dry. You don't want it dry, but you don't want it dripping wet, right? So then, get a little dab of this stuff on your finger, about yay big, right? Just work it in and just rub it on the inside, right? Not a lot, just enough to do thin, thin coat. I mean thin, extremely thin, okay? Then come up here under the mag well, get in there, just thin. I mean the thinnest layer you could possibly imagine, just enough to barely make the metal look wet, okay? That's that. Then, do the same thing for the dust cover. Flip the gun over. Flip the gun over. I'll draw a line in here. See this? Now that line, I'll take that whole line and I'll work that into the entire. At first you could hear my hand moving along that middle. Now you can't. But I literally will take that little line of grease and I will work it under the entirety of the inside of this dust cover. That's how much. I don't use a lot, just a tiny bit. Just enough to make the metal, look wet, guys. Don't soak it. Because if you soak it, all that lube, all that grease, too much can be bad because it will hold, that grease will hold carbon in there, okay? So get you a good amount. Be careful. Be careful when you're doing this. I don't want you to like slice your finger to the bone. Get you another little line in there if that's what you need. And rub the entirety of the inside of this. You know, your bolt carrier group and your piston runs along this. That little plastic piece that's on your guide rod spring, the little protector shield, that runs in here. You don't want that plastic to wear down on this metal. Just enough to make the inside of it smooth. All right, that's good. Now, my little dust cover hinge gets a little dab. Work it, work it, work it, work it. Now, I take my gun butter, put it on, take my gun butter and I do one drop on the front on each rail. Now I'm talking tiny. One in the back on each rail, tiny. One in the middle. I don't work that in. I just let it do its thing. And as far as greasing and lubing goes, the inside of the receiver is done. All right, guys, so my gun's propped up here. It's good there. See the black and the silver? Look here on the bottom. You see, I know you can see it right there. That metal shining through. All right, so you're gonna have that right there as well. See that metal shining through? All the paint's gone. Definitely in this little crack right here where the rails go. On each side of your bolt carrier group in there, okay? So these things come black from the factory, and after you shoot them quite a bit, you're going to start noticing all of your black wearing off, and you're going to see where the metal shines through. So that, whenever you see that metal, that really says, hey, you've got metal rubbing metal there. So, now for my rails, where the little crack is where the rail sits, man, I fill that with gun butter. I do a solid line in there, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. See the red in that crack there? See the red in there? See the red in there? I put a line of gun butter where that red, that's a line of gun butter. That's not, the whole thing is not filled. That's not like a Grand Canyon filled. It's just a line of gun butter in there. Now that gun butter is going to ride back and forth on my rails. The rest of this thing, I want you to see this. A pea-sized drop on my middle finger 1, 2, 3. Okay? I'm going to mix that up between these fingers. I'm going to rub my bolt. Just rub it down, the whole outside of it. And my piston, I'm going to rub it down. Okay, that's good. Just a thin layer. Now, I don't want a lot. I just want this thing slick. Just slick, not over. No, I don't want it dripping. I don't want it dripping. I just want it slick, okay? Now, here is where my thick grease comes into play, okay? So now, always right there on the edge. Okay, so I've got metal rubbing metal. Not really bad, but kind of up here on the front. So I'm gonna get a little bit of that. Just kind of glob a little, not a lot, not like globbing on there, just a thin layer up here, because I can see metal rubbing metal. And then on the rest of it, I don't really have metal rubbing metal. I can see a little bit there, so I'm gonna touch on it right there just a little bit. Touch on it there just a little bit, and touch on it there just a little bit. Now that's pretty much good. Now, I'm going to put my bolt back in its home. Okay? Now, put my bolt back in its home. So, right here, see that metal? See that metal? See that metal? Okay, that's bad. Right there, right there, and right there. Let me get a glob on my fingers. I'm gonna put a little dab of the stuff right there. Not a lot. Just a dab, you see it? Not enough, not a lot. Just a dab of it. You see it on there? And then a little bit right there. A little bit right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. Okay? Then I take what excess I have, rub it right here. This is the spot right here that goes over your hammer. That's what pulls your hammer down. So, put a glob on that. See it there? Thick grease, thick. 6 little dabs, okay? Now, okay, get over here in the light where I can see. Lay your hammer down. Click it down in place, okay? Now, you're going to run your piston up in the front of the, up through your gas tube, okay? Then, oh, my bolt's out of spec here. Slide her home. Now, when you do that, I'm going to show you this. Now, I put my globs of thick grease on there. Now, I want you to see this. Now, I put my thick grease on there, and I didn't touch it, but I got my bolt carrier, my bolt, and everything in there. And by doing so, I ran my bolt home up there. Ran everything home, and when it, son of a gun, boys. If I could drop this flashlight 72 more times. All right, now when I did that, a dab of that grease came off on my hammer there. See that? Right there? Daggone it, this thing is cutting my hand. Okay, right there, you see that yellow dab? right there. Now I'm just going to rub that off. Don't need that on there. Got it off there. Left a little bit on my rails there. Rub that excess off. Any excess that it left on the inside of the gun as it went home, just take your fingers, rub it off, rub it into your towel, rub it back into the container, whatever you want to do. Grab your guide rod and your guide rod spring. Just wipe it down. Wipe it off really good. Tiny, tiny, tiny thin layer of your thick grease, and just rub it on this plastic cover, this protective piece. Rub it on the outside of it, because that's going to be running back and forth in under your dust cover. So thin little layer on that. Like I said, not a lot, just enough to make it look wet. Slide that bad boy home. Lock her in place. Smack it home. Then I do that until it smells like a mechanic shop. You've been in a mechanic shop and you can smell that burnt oil from where it's come out of cars and everything. It's got that weird, that mechanic smell. Work the action back and forth. Not hard. I don't slam it all the way to the back and then smack it forwards. I just get it right in the middle, right here. And just work it until I can smell that mechanic smell. And then I pop my dust cover open one more time. And I just look around for any excess grease that come from underneath of my bolt where I put it on those spots, because all of those spots are what touches here. So there's a little bit of excess. I wipe it. If you put too much on, it'll come out the sides of your receiver. It'll come in between your receiver and your dust cap here. Open your dust cover one more time. Just look through here. Wipe any excess off the edges of the receiver. Close it back up. And you're good to go. I forgot to run my bore snake through. I'm not really worried about it, but I forgot to run my bore snake through, so I've got to take everything back out for that. I'm not going to do it. Now, this guy, the one you saturated, okay? So, all over the metal, guys. All over the gun. All over the gun. If this is a home defense gun, don't do this on your charging handle, on your handguard, on your pistol grip, or on your stock. It'll make it a little slick. I'm just doing this because mine's not a home defense gun. Shotguns to me are finicky, and man, it seems like when I try to show my shotgun off, it fails on me every time. Like I could put 10,000 rounds through a gun and not give me a problem. I'm like, hey man, check this gun out, how awesome, pow, and then it malfunctions. And for that reason, and for trying to reload magazines and those Saiga 10-round mags, you see how hard they give me such a hard time trying to load them. That's the reason why I don't. Not to mention, if something happens and you're not standing behind the gun good and firm, somebody is coming at you and you're startled and you're trying to back up and shoot, and it malfunctions because it's a semi-auto because you've not stood firm behind the gun, or if the extractor just decides to break, and they do that all the freaking time. Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons why I don't use this gun as a home defense gun. Now, if it was all I had, shoot, I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't worry about using it one bit. My gun is reliable. I would use it if it's all I had. If I used shotguns, I would go get a tactical Mossberg 500. But this would definitely be in the room with it. But yeah, guys, so yeah, just Everything that's metal, everything that could rust, wipe it down because it will rust. I promise you that. Definitely right here, when you shoot this gun, the bottom of the receiver in between the pistol grip and the stock, there's a little section of metal right here where the webbing of your hand sits. That spot will rust the fastest. And where your finger touches the trigger guard, that spot will rust the fastest. Anywhere you get your bodily greases, your bodily oils onto this gun, make sure you wipe it down extra good because it will make it rust. So, wipe it down. Like I said, guys, if this is your home defense gun, don't put it on your foreguard or foregrip. Don't put it on your pistol grip. And I mean, I guess you could put it on your stock. I don't put it on my stock because I don't want to like get it on my face. But yeah, guys, so that's pretty much it. Took me an hour and a half to do this, and I'm not going to edit it. I'm posting it straight through. So I hope you guys appreciate it. I know this video's long. I hope I went in depth enough for you. I did not try to rush through this. I really tried to do this good and explain it to you with what lighting I have. Guys, I've got 3 studio lights and my main light literally circled around me. There's one. There's one. And there's one. And my main light. And it still didn't seem like I had enough light. I don't understand. Like, my aunt gave me these lights, and I really appreciate that because I need lights. But for some reason, when you get inside of a receiver, I don't care how much light you have, you either don't have enough or you have too much and it blinds you. But guys, thank you all so much. I'm sorry that this part 2 is so long, but it is in depth. It is exactly what I do. And I hope that this helps someone out there in some way. Again, guys, subscribe to my channel. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Comment down below. Tell me what you do different. Tell me what maintenance routine you have for your JTS. I would really like to know. And guys, share my video. Share it. Alright guys, I am done. I'm putting this bad boy in the safe. I'm going to take a shower and I'm going to crawl in the bed and snuggle up to my baby girl and watch some Family Guy. So, the finer things in life. Guys, subscribe, like, comment, share. Tell me, I want to know your maintenance routine. What do you do? What greases do you use? What oils do you use? What cleaning stuff do you use? Do you use microfiber towels? Everything that I've showed you here, besides the armorer's kit, besides the hammer, everything else, the hammer and the knife, everything else is linked in the description below. You can go right over to Amazon for my links, and yeah, everything's over there, guys. I would really appreciate it if you would do that. That is my affiliate marketing. I just now started with that, so that technically is the only way my channel has to make money right now. And any way I do that, any money that I get from that, I don't care if it's 50 cents or $6,000, I'm going to take that money from all affiliate marketings and I'm going to put it into a safe, into my safe, and then I'm going to use that on only gun channel related stuff, and it is going to be a blast. Guys, I love you all so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm almost at 700 subscribers. I never thought in a million years when I started that it was going to be moving this fast, but because of you all, it is. Thank you, guys. I love you. Until next time, you all stay safe. Do you like Whisper Nation? Like, what's up, Whisper Nation? You know what I mean? Like, when I get a big enough following and I have merchandise, would Whisper Nation be a shirt? Like an AR-15 or an MP5 with a suppressor on it going not bang, 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 and it's just like whisper, you know, shut up and shoot, like, but shoot quietly, hence shh, whisper. Nothing worse than being at the range with your suppressors and a guy pulling up with an AR-10 with a 6-inch muzzle brake. I know that's exaggerating, but I mean, every time they pull the trigger, you can just feel the blast going through you. But would Whisper Nation stick? Is that something that would work? Let me know if that would work in the comments below, guys. Thank you all. Love you. Till next time, stay safe.